Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Tiny Blue Games. My name is, of course, Csaw or Chris, and today we're talking about Final Fantasy XIV in 2019. Specifically, today we're going to be taking a little bit of a step back and analyzing, my Final Fantasy XIV experience so far. And the title of this video is How Hard Is It to Get into Final Fantasy XIV? Because let's be honest, I think if you were to look at this game from a perspective of someone who hasn't played it, someone who's looking online at it, who's looking on Reddit, who's trying to do some research before they make a purchase decision, one of the biggest things you hear is that this game, this MMO, is excellent, but it's pretty hard to get into, and I guess what we're really going to cover is what my experience has been with that. I've been playing the game for about 5 months now, and I'm very much of the opinion that you take your time and you enjoy an MMO. It's all about the journey and less about the destination, and you might be different. You might have a completely different thought pattern than that, and I kind of want to tell you how the game is going to feel if you have the same thoughts as me, or if you are someone who's more focused on rushing to the end game and yada yada yada. So let's get into the video. First off, let's look at why people think it is a difficult game to get into. Well, I mean, the first and most obvious, I guess, from someone who didn't play the game for quite a while, is that it is one of the subscription-based MMOs. And unlike World of Warcraft, where you can eventually earn enough in-game currency to pay off your subscription, there's no way to do that in this game. So you are going to be paying a sub fee every month, which is a turnoff. There's a lot of people who will see that barrier to entry and just won't be able to do it. And if they are able to do it, it takes a fair bit more convincing to get in there. Now, there are options for the sub fee to have a lesser sub fee if you just have the one character, which I do like. I think is a really great option. And if you've joined the game, you know that you really do only need one character, because you can play all of the different classes or jobs, if you will, on the same tune. So it definitely, it's not something that feels too limiting, and it is a nice little bit of a price break, which is great. The other thing is that there is a free trial, and the free trial is absolutely excellent. There's so much you could do. If I took a perspective of just wanting to play as much of the free trial as I could and just get as many different classes to level 35, I could probably still be playing the free trial after all of this time that I've spent in game. My viewers and my subscribers might be pretty irritated with me if I did it that way, and they're probably kind of irritated with me anyways, just because of how slow I am, but that's okay. They've come to terms with it. We know who I am. I'm not afraid anymore. But there's so much you can do with the free trial, so if you are at all concerned about the sub fee, there is definitely a way you can give it a go without really having to pay anything over. So that's definitely nice. The other big one, and this might even just be one that affected me more than other people, is that I knew Final Fantasy was a really big thing, or is a really big thing. And I've never played any of the Final Fantasies before this. I know nothing about the universe of Final Fantasy. And I thought that would negatively impact my gaming experience. And to be fair, there's definitely certain references that I probably don't understand. There's certain times in my comments where someone's like, oh, this is a reference to this in Final Fantasy, like lore or something like that. And it's really cool to know those little bits, but it definitely felt like you learned plenty about the actual game and about the world that you're in the MMO from the actual MMO. So I don't think, it's certainly not a prerequisite to know anything about Final Fantasy before you jump in, and it's definitely very enjoyable even if you haven't played a Final Fantasy game. That being said, if you fall in love with the universe, there's a whole bunch of other games that you might want to explore afterwards, so there's that going for it as well. So it's kind of a double-edged blade there. And there's a lot of MMOs that have this, right? Like you look at World of Warcraft and it's got all of the Warcraft lore associated with it. You look at Guild Wars 2, their whole plan with the past expansion has been referencing Guild Wars 1, and as someone who didn't play Guild Wars 1, I still enjoyed Guild Wars 2, though in that game I almost felt like I was missing out on certain things a bit more, just because they really went pretty heavy with the Guild Wars 1 callbacks, and I didn't feel quite that way in this game, but you know, everyone's going to have their own opinion on that, and that's just how it is. The last point, and I think this talks to more about what I was discussing at the start about playstyles, is that the quests that you have to go through for your first time, your main scenario quests, they can be quite tedious. I'm sure if you're someone who's been looking at the game and sort of debating if you want to try it, you might have stumbled upon a certain YouTube video that was not very positive about the quest system. And, you know, we're not going to focus on that, you know, opinion, because there is some, you know, validity to it as well. Like the current situation of the main scenario quest, I think, is overly tedious. I don't think there's any way around it. The game has actually acknowledged it, and they are looking at doing a bit of a shorten are condensing it a bit, and no one really knows exactly what that will look like, but we are, like, I'll definitely take a look at it when the time comes around, and I think it's something that is definitely needed, because although the main scenario quest is very interesting, I am enjoying it, I'm taking it at my own pace and just really enjoying every little step of it, it does become more of a grind in certain situations, specifically certain chapters of the main scenario quest. They start to feel like, okay, I'm just fetching this, I'm just killing these over and over again, but you have to do it, right? So there is a bit of an issue there, where as you have games like World of Warcraft, where you can hit level 15 and you can just do dungeons from a main city, and that's it, that's all, that you're done. You can get to end game and do everything you want. You might have to do the war campaign if you want specific rewards or specific maps or something like that, but you can do a lot of the game without having to do the story in World of Warcraft, whereas Final Fantasy XIV forces you down that rabbit hole. Now, the primary benefit of being forced down that rabbit hole is that they can get a lot more in depth with the story and how it impacts your character, because they know people are going to be going down this. Like, there's going to be a lot more people that are participating and learning about the game through this. So it does allow them to do things a bit differently. And it'll be interesting to see how they adjust things in the future. Now, this does get to the point where I was talking about someone who takes it more casually and someone who's trying to get to the end game to enjoy the end game content. Myself, I've really tried to play new MMOs and current MMOs as just enjoying every step of the way, really enjoying the journey. And this is something that I think you need to go into an MMO understanding and really actively work towards. I have some friends that I regularly play other games with, regularly play other MMOs with, and I know for a fact that two of them wouldn't be able to get into Final Fantasy XIV and enjoy it unless they were to purchase a story skip and just sort of get to end game, because they don't like that. They don't like the journey. They're all about the raids, all about the gear progression, they're all about the end game, but they will not take the time to go through that. The only way they could go through it is if I promised to go through every single step and lead them through it, and like we made a big commitment to it and going through it that way. But even then, it would be horrible for the two of us to commit to that, just because it's not fun to walk your hand with someone. It's something that they wouldn't be able to enjoy, and I can definitely see that. Whereas my other friend, he's all about learning about the lore of a game and all about learning the background story and why things are happening and understanding all of the little characters and stuff like that, and their role with the main story. And he would love going through the story and taking his time getting to endgame. So there's two different players, and they're going to have completely different reactions to how this story builds itself, how this MMO lets you play, and it's kind of damaging. So there needs to be changes made, and they are making some changes. The question is, will it be enough? And is it something that you're going to end up liking? I revert back to my original point about the free trial, where you get to go all the way to level 35. Well, you get a pretty good taste of what the main scenario quest feels like. I've heard from a lot of people that things really start to pick up near the end, and as you go into the newest expansions. So I'm very excited to see what those play like, but what I can for sure say is that the main scenario quest feels very similar from the very start to the middle part, where I am now, kind of the 30 to 40 section. It starts to get a bit more interesting, but a lot of the quests and how the story is displayed to you feels very similar. So you can get a feel for things from the free trial, and you can really assess it yourself. At this point, I'd love to welcome the community. I have a great community on this channel who are very welcoming to new players of Final Fantasy XIV. Certainly, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask about the game, this would be a great place. And if you are a veteran player and just want to share your own little piece of advice when joining the game, that would be great too. Hopefully, I haven't said anything that's upset anyone. I keep stumbling across people who are kind of looking at the game and wondering if it's worth getting into and how hard it is to get into it. And just being someone who's, going through that struggle myself, sharing that it is nice, but you have to know what you're going into. But yeah, guys, if you like this video, please give it a like, please share it around. If you are interested in Final Fantasy XIV content or just MMO content in general, definitely consider subscribing. We'd love to have you be a part of our community as well. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.